The world of Avatar: The Last Airbender may be full of bending and silly adventures, but for the characters we know and love, growing up was anything but easy. War shaped our favorite characters' lives from the beginning, stealing peace, forcing responsibility, and leaving deep emotional scars. In this video, we're taking a closer look at just how challenging their childhoods really were. Welcome back to the Casual TV channel, and let's dive right into how the wars shaped the childhoods of the characters in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Let's start with a character whose difficult upbringing is essential to his story, Zuko. His difficulties weren't just physical, though that was a very apparent part of it. After speaking out of turn, he was scarred. A pretty severe punishment, but the psychological damage ran even deeper. Zuko grew up feeling unloved, unworthy, and unwanted. His father Ozai made it clear that strength and cruelty were the only traits he respected. His father banished him on an impossible journey to capture the Avatar when most people didn't even think he existed. Zuko spent the greater part of 3 years trying to prove to his father that he was valuable and honorable, and Ozai really wasn't batting an eye. The only time he did was when he tried to throw Zuko in prison for being a failure at the Northern Water Tribe. The only person besides Iroh who cared for Zuko was his mother Ursa, but she disappeared when he was still a child. Though she did things to save him, Zuko was too young to understand, and her absence only deepened his loneliness. Ozai made it clear, Zuko wasn't strong enough, cruel enough, or worthy enough to be his son, and he constantly lived in Azula's shadow. So Zuko was cast out, confused, broken, and unsure of who he really was. Zuko had his issues with his father, but Aang, as happy and silly as he was, had his own struggles growing up. A 12-year-old kid being told to give up his childhood and save the world, that's a ridiculous amount of pressure for anyone. The monks try to shape Aang into something he really wasn't ready to be yet. They wanted him to separate from Monkey Atso, the only person who truly understood him also. All the pressure and expectations got to his head, and he made a rash decision that he would regret for the rest of his life. After being frozen for 100 years, Aang wakes up to a world thrown out of balance, and now, not only does he have to stop a war, but he also have to live with the thought that maybe if he stayed that night, things could have been different. People don't think he could have stopped what had happened, but it still sits heavy. That's a lot of mental weight for anyone to carry, let alone a 12-year-old with the fate of the world on his shoulders. What I love about all the characters in Avatar: The Last Airbender is that their stories are unique in every way, even for Katara and Sokka. They went through the same traumatic event, losing their mother during the Fire Nation raid, but it shaped them in completely different ways. For Katara, it was a scenario that played out right in front of her. For Sokka, he was trying to protect his village, but for both of them, they had to throw their childhoods away and step up in a time of need. Sokka wanted to be a strong warrior and make his father proud. With Katara, she wanted the same strength, but what the village needed for her was different. They need someone to nurture, to lead, and hold the community together. Both of them stepped up in their own way, shaped by the war and the weight of it placed on their shoulders. You could see the maturity from the very first episode, especially in Sokka trying to train the younger kids and prepare them for a fight that was already at their doorstep. Toph's childhood might have looked easy from the outside, growing up in a rich family, living in comfort, but behind all that luxury was a different kind of struggle, unlike the ones we see with Zuko, Aang, Katara, and Sokka. Her parents treated her blindness as a weakness, when it really was her superpower. They didn't see her strength, just someone who needed to be protected from the world. They smothered her, trying to control every part of her life, and never gave her the freedom to be herself. People didn't even know that she existed at times. She wasn't physically struggling like others, but emotionally, it was a different story. Being told over and over that you're too weak, too helpless, that takes a toll mentally. Toph wasn't allowed to have fun, take risks, or even just be a kid. So when she started fighting in the underground WWE earthbending crew, it was her way of finally breaking free. Before she ever joined Team Avatar, Toph had already been fighting for her voice, her independence, and her right to live life on her own terms. These are just the main characters, and they've all had their share of painful memories and tough moments from their past. But even a lot of the secondary characters in the show went through similar struggles. Just growing up during the war was enough to leave a mark. Take Azula for example. The prodigy child got everything she really wanted, except real love and affection from others. People feared her instead of loving and respecting who she was. Unlike Zuko, she didn't get the chance to be vulnerable. She was taught to see emotion as weakness, and that perfection was the only way to earn approval. She was confident and in control, but underneath, she was a kid forced to constantly chase validation in a family that only valued strength. Another one is Jet and his freedom fighters. His childhood evaporated when the Fire Nation burned his village to the ground. His parents were taken away from him that day, and he lost any sense of peace or safety. His freedom fighters had similar fates, and they were essentially rescued by Jet and they idolized him. He grew up fast. Fueled by anger and the need for justice, he was trying to make sense of a world that took too much from him too soon. And he thought the best way to retaliate was to give them a taste of their own medicine, no matter who stood in the way of it. Even when you look at the smaller side characters, like Haru from the imprisoned episode, where his village was overrun with corrupt Fire Nation soldiers and earthbending was outlawed. His father was taken from him, and eventually he got himself arrested as well. A similar story happens with Lee in the episode Zuko Alone. His brother was taken from him to go fight in the war, and instead of corrupt Fire Nation soldiers, he had corrupt Earth Kingdom soldiers meant to protect them. Then you have Teo from the Northern Air Temple. Not only was he left with a disability from the flood, but his mother and his home was taken from him also. With war going on in the world for the last 100 years, it's honestly asking a lot to grow up as a normal kid. Everyone has to take on more responsibility than a normal kid in the Fire Nation might have to, albeit we see the struggles. Ty Lee, May, and the Fire Nation class that Aang went to. But what makes this show truly great is that they do not let their rougher childhood define who they are, and these characters use it to empower themselves. Zuko used the banishment as a means to learn empathy from others, gained valuable knowledge and wisdom from a real father figure in Iroh, and regained his own honor and became the Fire Lord. Aang was a 12-year-old boy thrust into a world at war that needed him desperately. At first he ran from his destiny, but in the end, he faced the Fire Lord and defeated him on his own terms, finalizing his Avatar legendary status when at first he never wanted to be. Sokka wanted to be a warrior his whole life just like his father, but he was left behind to protect his village and his family. In the end, he became a fierce and wise leader and put together a battle plan that helped save the Earth Kingdom during Sozin's Comet. Katara was thrust into the mother role when hers was taken from her, and when told that she was not allowed to waterbend as a girl, she stood up for what she believed in and did both. She defeated Azula and helped Zuko restore balance to the Fire Nation. Toph proved to her parents that she wasn't a weak, helpless little girl. She helped Sokka and Aang defeat the Fire Lord and his fleet, and she became the first Earthbender to metal bend, showing her parents that all she needed was a little longer leash. Avatar: The Last Airbender shows us that struggle isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of growth. Thanks for tuning into the Casual TV. If you liked the video, go ahead, drop a like, leave a comment with your favorite character arc. Don't forget to subscribe for more breakdowns in the world of Avatar and beyond. So hit that bell and stay in the loop.